podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the number one rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 10th of September. We're already a third of the way through this month and really is not doing me any favours. It is grey and raining today, and my neighbours are getting their driveway, neighbours, they live way up the road, they're getting their driveway concreted, and it's just piss and rain. So that's not going to be good for them. Right, we've had international football. We talked about the European side of it yesterday, and I thought we might as well take a look at what has gone on in this international break in South America, because, to be fair, they're World Cup qualifiers. They're not nothing games. So on the 5th and 6th, we had Bolivia versus Venezuela. Bolivia winning 4-0. Argentina then beat Chile 3-0. Uruguay and Paraguay played at a 0-0 draw. Brazil beat Ecuador 1-0. And Peru and Colombia played out a 1-1 draw. Now we have today 5 more games. So Colombia take on Argentina. Chile take on Bolivia. Ecuador take on Peru. Venezuela take on Uruguay, and Paraguay at home to Brazil. So if you're not familiar with how the standings sit at the moment, Argentina are a class above. They have 18 points from 7 games, 6 wins and 1 defeat, 11 goals scored, only 2 conceded. Uruguay are second. They've got 14 points from their 7 games, 4 wins, 2 draws, 1 defeat, 13 goals scored and 5 conceded. Colombia have 13 points. They are unbeaten. They're the only unbeaten team so far. 3 wins, 4 draws, 7 goals scored, 4 conceded. Then it's Brazil on 10 points. 3 wins, 1 draw, 3 defeats. Like, this has not been a good campaign for Brazil. They drew with Venezuela. They lost to Uruguay. They lost to Colombia. They lost to Argentina. Now, the win over Ecuador was a good win. They should beat Paraguay. They should beat Chile. They should beat Peru. They should go to Venezuela and win. But then they get Uruguay, they get Colombia, they get Argentina away. They have to go to Ecuador. Then they play Paraguay at home, Chile at home, and Bolivia at home. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that they lose potentially 7 games of the 18 that they'll play. Not out of the realms of possibility at all. Venezuela have 9 points, 2 wins, 3 draws, 2 defeats, scored 6, conceded 7. Ecuador, 3 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats, 8 points, scored 5, conceded 4. Ecuador are strong defensively, they're strong in midfield. They don't have a goal scorer. So, as things stand, those 6 teams would qualify, and Paraguay would go into the Interconfederation playoffs. They've got 6 points, 1 win, 3 draws, 3 defeats. Only scored once, conceded 3. Bolivia have 6 points. They've won 2 but lost 5. They've scored 8 but conceded 14. Worst defensive record in the group. Then Chile have 5 points, 1 win, 2 draws, 4 defeats, scored 3, conceded 10. And Peru bring up the rear. They're the only team without a win. They've got 3 draws, 4 defeats, scored 2, conceded 9. So none of them are out of the mix as yet. We're not even halfway through. Obviously, this runs up until September of next year is when the World Cup qualifiers will come to an end for South America. So we've got, obviously, 2 games in October. We get 2 games in November. Then we have 2 games in March, 2 games in June, and the following 2 games then, or the last 2 games in September of next year. So it'll come around pretty quick, but it's certainly, I think it's the highest standard of international football outside of major tournaments. Because if you look at this list of teams, Argentina are reigning World Cup champions. We know how good they are. Uruguay is just chock full of great talent. Colombia has plenty of really good players. Brazil is a really good team, though obviously not performing well. Venezuela are underrated but good. Ecuador are, I think, very good potentially. Paraguay are strong. Bolivia are decent. Chile are okay, though still heavily reliant on too many older players. And then Peru are the one team that you just look at and think, you're kind of making up the numbers, but they're the only one. They're the only one that you can really look at and think they're just there making up numbers. I think there's a lot of quality in that group. I really do. So top goal scorers, and as things stand, Darwin Núñez has 5. Messi, Rodrigo, Luis Diaz, and Nicolas de la Cruz have 3. Otamendi, Vaca of Bolivia, Neymar, Rafael Santos Borré, Felix Torres, and Solomon Rondon all have 2, and then obviously there's a whole bunch of players with 1. There's only been 1 own goal scored. Bolivian Gabriel Villamil scored an own goal for against Bolivia in the Uruguay game. So yeah, that's where we stand with the Argentine qualifying for the 2026 World Cup. We might as well, I suppose, have a look at what's happening with the other confederations. Now, the European confederations don't actually start their qualification until March of 2025. And it'll run through till March of 2026. So they're actually quite late to find out who's through, but that's in part because of the sheer volume of teams. In CONCACAF, which is obviously kind of North and Central America, we had a bunch of games take place over the summer as the second round. So they do three different rounds. And the second round is, I think, still ongoing. It is still ongoing. And this is where you see the likes of Group A, Honduras, Cuba, Cayman Islands, Antigua and Barbuda, and Bermuda. Group B, Costa Rica, Trinidad, St. Kitts and Nevis, Grenada, Bahamas, and so on and so forth. These type of teams. So this is basically to trim off the weaker teams. And then the stronger teams will go into the third round, which will commence, I believe, from September of next year. Now, obviously, Canada, Mexico, and the USA are qualified as hosts. So that takes them out of the qualification process. So there'll only be 3 teams to come out of this entire region, where normally you'd have, I think, say 5 or 6 spots. I think they get 5 normally. They're getting 6 this time around. There are 35 teams that would normally play in that region. Now, we know that Mexico would get in, America would get in, and Canada probably would have gotten in regardless. They take 3 spots, which leaves 3 for 32 teams. I would guess Jamaica, Panama, and maybe Honduras. Maybe that's who I'd go for as my other team to get through. In the Oceania, sorry, I froze there for a minute. I had a bit of a Donald Trump moment. In the Oceania, the second round will commence in October and it'll run October through November. There'll be 2 groups of 4. Each team plays 3 games. There's no home and away. It's drawn at random. So you have Solomon Islands, Fiji, New Caledonia, and Papua New Guinea in Group A, New Zealand, Tahiti, Vanuatu, and Samoa in Group B. The top 2 teams go through in each group. So you get round 3 is to take place in March of next year. That'll have semi-finals and then a final. The winner of the final qualifies for the World Cup, and the loser will go into the Interconfederation playoffs. In Asia, where we stand right now is that they've been through sort of the cutoff point of knocking out the weaker teams, your East Timors, your Sri Lankas, your Cambodias, etc., etc. And now they move on to the more, I suppose, serious side of it, which is when all the top teams come in. Now, we've already had group play. We've had Stage B. Qatar, Kuwait qualified from Group A. Japan and North Korea from Group B. South Korea and China from Group C. Oman and Kyrgyzstan from Group C. From Group D. Group E, Iran, Uzbekistan. Group F, Iraq, Indonesia. Group G, Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Group H, United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. And in Group I, Australia and Palestine. Into the third round, where there are 3 groups, 6 teams in each group, and those games have gotten underway in this break. So we'll catch up on those. So in Group A, it's UAE, Iran, Uzbekistan, North Korea, Qatar, and Kyrgyzstan. Uzbekistan beat North Korea 1-0. Iran beat Kyrgyzstan 1-0. And Qatar lost 3-1 at home to UAE. That was the first round of games. The second round of games are taking place today, and North Korea and Qatar have played at a 2-2 draw. Kyrgyzstan will play Uzbekistan a little bit later, That game actually might be going on now. And the United Arab Emirates are playing Iran today as well. In Group B, it's Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, South Korea, Palestine, and Oman. In the first round of games, South Korea and Palestine drew 0-0. That's a big upset. Iraq beat Oman 1-0, and Jordan and Kuwait drew 1-1. Second round of games are today. Palestine are playing Jordan. That game is taking place in Kuala Lumpur because obviously it can't take place in Palestine. Oman taking on South Korea and Kuwait against Iraq. And in Group C, which is actually comfortably the strongest group, I think, you've got the Saudis, you've got Japan, Bahrain, Indonesia, Australia, and China. So Japan beat China 7-0. Lots of Premier League and Premier League adjacent players there. So you had Endo of Liverpool scoring. Mitoma scored. Taki Minamino, formerly of Liverpool, scored. Ito, who plays for Reims, he scored. He's been linked with Premier League clubs. Did he play in England at one point? No, he was at Genk. He's been linked with Premier League clubs in the past. Daisen Maeda of Celtic, he scored. And Kubo, who's been long linked to move to Premier League, got the seventh and final goal. Bahrain went to Australia and beat them 1-0 in what was a significant upset. A Harry Suter own goal. He's just not very good. And then Saudi Arabia played Indonesia, and Indonesia got a draw, 1-1. Another upset. So, again, we have games going on today. Saudi Arabia have gone to China and won 2-1. Japan are playing Bahrain in Bahrain, and Australia are playing Indonesia in Jakarta. So that game is going on at the moment. And that is where we stand. So Saudis have 4 points, but they've played 2 games. Japan have 3, Bahrain have 3, Indonesia 2. But obviously each team will play 10 games. Each team will play 10 games between now and June of 2025. That's when this round will come to an end. And how this is going to work is the top 2 from each group will qualify directly, and then third and fourth in each group will go into the fourth round. And in the fourth round, there'll be 6 teams, obviously 2 from each group. They'll be split into 2 groups of 3. They'll all play each other. The winners of those groups will get the 4th and 5th automatic qualifying spots. The 2 teams that finish second in those groups will head off against each other, and the winner of that game will go into the Inter-Confederation playoff, just to make it as convoluted as is humanly possible. There is obviously World Cup qualifying going on in Africa as well. Not at the moment. There are no games scheduled in this break. But if you were unaware, Group A of the African qualification has Egypt, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso, Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. Egypt are top with 10 points. Guinea-Bissau have 6 points. Burkina Faso have 5. Sierra Leone have 5. Ethiopia have 3. And Djibouti have 1. The top team goes through automatically. The runner-up, potentially, depending on where you fit, like your points total and goal difference, etc., will qualify for the second round, and then the teams out of the second round will go into the Inter-Confederation playoff. What else do we have then? So Group B, there are, I believe, 9 groups. I think there's 9 groups. Let's have a quick gander through here. Right, Group B, Sudan, Senegal, Democratic Republic of Congo, Togo, South Sudan, and Mauritania. And at the moment, Sudan, surprise to everybody, are top of that group with 10 points. Senegal have 8, Democratic Republic of Congo have 7, Togo have 3, South Sudan have 2, and Mauritania have 1. In Group C, it's Rwanda, South Africa, Benin, Lesotho, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. Nigeria, disastrous start, but Rwanda are top with 7. South Africa also have 7. Benin also have 7. Lesotho have 5. Nigeria have 3. They're yet to win a game from the 4 they've played, which is just staggering, really. And then Zimbabwe have 2 points. Group D has Cameroon, Libya, Cape Verde, Angola, Mauritius, and Eswatini. Cameroon are top on 8 points, Libya 7, Cape Verde 7, Angola 6, Mauritius 4, and Eswatini have no points thus far. Group E, Morocco, Niger, Tanzania, Zambia, Congo, and Eritrea have withdrawn from the competition, so their games have just been given as I assume will be given. Oh no, they're not playing anybody, so they didn't play any games, so they won't be given as buys. So each team will only play the 10 games rather than 12 games. Morocco are top, 9 points. Niger have 6. Tanzania have 6. Zambia have 3. Congo have no points. Moving on to Group F, Ivory Coast, Gabon, Burundi, Kenya, Gambia, Seychelles. Ivory Coast have 10 points. Gabon have 9. Burundi have 7. Kenya 5. Gambia 3. And Seychelles, no points. Again, like I say, the top team from each group automatically qualifies. The best runners-up will go into the second round. Group G has Algeria top with 9 points, but only in goal difference from Mozambique. Botswana have 6, Guinea have 6, Uganda have 6, and Somalia are the whipping boys. They have no points. Group H, Tunisia top 10 points, Namibia second with 8, Liberia have 7, Malawi have 6, Equatorial Guinea have 3, Sao Tome and Principe have no points. And then finally, Group I, Comoros have 9, Ghana have 9, Madagascar 7, Mali 5, Central African Republic have 4, and Chad have no points. They are, as with Somali, they're the team that everybody's just beating up on. Right, that is where we stand with World Cup qualifiers. I'm not hugely keen on this World Cup. 2022 was not good. It was a great story, but the quality wasn't good. And we're getting an extra 16 teams in 2026. An extra 16 teams. The World Cup does not need to have 48 teams. There are not 48 good teams to play in a World Cup. It's just simply the case. And I don't like the fact that we're continually spreading the World Cup across multiple countries. Because it's going to happen in this one, it's going to happen in the one after as well. Now, 2034, it'll be in Saudi Arabia, because nobody else made a bid for it, which is just a little bit weird. But again, like the other options were all spread across multiple countries. We don't need this many teams. We don't need this many games in a World Cup. And we certainly don't need it been spread across multiple countries. The World Cup was not broken. The World Cup was fine. You hurt it by expanding it and diluting it. And now you're diluting it even further. And now expanding it even further. And it's just going to be a mess. I'll be back after the break.
A great workout deserves a great reward. Treat yourself right with new coconut smoothie bowls made with fresh fruit, purely Elizabeth granola, and now creamy coconut. You earned it. Grab a treat you can feel good about, only at Smoothie King.
Right, welcome back. So, what I thought I'd do is take a look at the summer transfer windows of clubs from around Europe. And I don't want to do all clubs because, nobody wants to hear that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Champions League clubs from the major leagues, not from all of them, just from the major leagues. And we'll do a couple of them each day. We'll probably only get through 3 leagues, maybe. So we'll do Spain, we'll do Italy, and we'll do Germany, because I don't think anybody cares enough about the French league or the Portuguese league to really spend much time on them. But we'll start today with Spain, and we have Atletico Madrid, FC Barcelona, Girona, and Real Madrid. So let's jump straight in with Atletico Madrid. Going out, Carlos Sionchu, 8.5 million, decent sale. Saul on loan to Sevilla. Alvaro Morata sold to Milan. Stefan Savic left on a free. They sold João Felix to Man City and somehow, or to Man City, to Chelsea, and somehow got 52 million euro. Amora Dion sold to Porto. Arta Vermeeren loaned. Don't really like that deal. Santiago Moreno sold to Alaves. Jermaine Varela left on a free, as did Vitolo, who hasn't signed anywhere yet. I assume he will retire. Gabriel Palista, who went to Besiktas. Memphis Depay, who's going to Corinthians. And Mario Hermoso, who has signed for Roma. Coming in, Robin Lenormand, I like that signing. Alex Sorlot, I'm not overly keen on. Julian Alvarez, I love the signing. Conor Gallagher, I'm not overly keen on. Clement Langley, I don't like at all. And Juan Musso, who I don't mind as a backup goalkeeper. The Lenormand and Alvarez signings are really good. Gallagher's fine. He's a fine player. I just wouldn't have signed him if I was a team with ambitions to win anything, because he's so technically limited. But I suppose he does fit into what Simeone wants from certain players. He will run all day long. He'll win the ball back. He'll be annoying. And to be fair, in La Liga, we might see a return to the goal-scoring version of Gallagher that we'd seen at Crystal Palace. They didn't overpay for him massively, to be fair. They didn't overpay for Sorlock, to be fair. I'm just not a big fan of him. The only one I really don't like is Clement Langley. I just wouldn't have him at my team. But overall, this is a good window. I'm going to give them a B+. Robin Lenormand's a really, really good centre-back, and I think Julian Alvarez is phenomenally good. So I'm going to give them a B+. Next up, we will have Barcelona. So going out, Marc Gui, Julian Orrego, Ilkay Gundogan, and Mikael Fay. I don't like that they sold him, and I'm happy that they were able to move on Gundogan, even though it's a bad deal for them. They also lost João Cancelo, they lost João Felix, Marcos Alonso left, Sergio Roberto left, and Serginho Dest left on a free. Coming in, Pau Victor, who's a talented young forward, and Dani Olmo. Didn't really solve the issues that they had. Didn't sign the defensive midfielder that they're desperate for. Didn't get rid of Lewandowski. Didn't sign a proper left winger to give them balance. Now, I assume Dani Olmo's going to play off the left with Pedri as the 10. They could swap. Gavi, when he goes back, will play in the double pivot. They've got a lot of good midfield players. They just don't have a double pivot that works. I like the defensive options. It's just that there's no real depth. You're going to overplay Pau Cubarsí. You're going to overplay Balde again, despite the fact he's coming off a very serious surgery. I'm continually staggered by how inept Barcelona have become. continually staggered. And I look at this list of academy players, and Mark Bernal is there. He's already torn his ACL. Hector Fort is there, very, very talented right back. They're going to make a mess of him. They'll overplay him. Queen Union, he's another very talented midfielder. They'll overpay him. Tony Fernandez is potentially the next star striker. They'll overplay him. And they've just done this over and over again. But the thing is, they had no money to spend in the window. None at all. And that they still managed to spend 30 million net. So, to their credit, for what they had to work with, it's a pretty good window. Danny Olmo's a really good player. He's not who I would have signed because of his injury track record and because of the fit, but I do see the benefit of having him in the squad. So I'll give them a B-. We'll jump straight to Girona. We'll do Girona, Real Madrid. Actually, then we might have time to do Benfica and Sporting as well. Girona, now they got pulled apart a little bit. So Jan Couto gone, Eric Garcia gone, Pablo Torre gone, Savinho gone. They were all in on loan last season. Now they're gone. They'd all played important roles. Alex Garcia is sold to Bayer Leverkusen. Artem Dovbyk sold to Roma. That is 6 important players gone out the door. Now coming in, Ladislav Krejci from Sparta Prague. He's not a player I'm overly familiar with. He's a centre-back. Not a player I know a whole lot about. 25, plays in midfield as well. Why don't I know him? So he's only played in the Czech League. Abel Ruiz brought in from Braga is a pretty good signing. Donny van de Beek, if he hits, that could be the bargain of the summer. It's just unlikely that it'll happen. Brian Hill comes in on loan. Oriol Romeo comes in on loan. Bojan Miovski comes in from Aberdeen. Can't say I've seen a ton of them. I do watch a decent amount of Scottish football, but I tend to focus on Celtic and Hibs. But he has put up good numbers the last 2 seasons. Pau Lopez arrives on loan. Yasser Asprilla is a really good signing, though. Like, that's a superbly talented player. And Arnaud Danjuma on loan, not bad. But the fact of it is, they lost 6 key players. And I think realistically, they've probably bought 2, maybe 3 starters. They did also sign Alejandro Francis from Real Zaragoza, who's a young centre-back. I think he's a good replacement for Eric Garcia. I'll give them a B. And then Real Madrid. So going out, Kepa's loan ran out. Nacho left. Tony Cruz retired. They sold Joselu. They bring back Jesus Vallejo, who will replace Nacho in the squad. They sign Kylian Mbappe and Endrick. This is an A+ window because they signed Kylian Mbappe without paying a transfer fee. I know there's a huge signing bonus. I know the wages are crazy. They signed Kylian Mbappe without paying a transfer fee. He's a top 2 player in world football. And the only way you can argue that he's not the best player in the world is if you believe that Vinicius Jr. is the best player in the world, who also plays for Real Madrid. And when you start to look at this Real squad with Courtois in goal, Militao as a centre-back, a midfield with Valverde, Tchouaméni, Camavinga, and Bellingham, Vinicius and Mbappe up front, and then Rodrigo as your backup forward, Arda Güler as your potential backup 10, Andre Lunin as your backup goalkeeper. You could include Ferland Mendy in the defence. I would say But I would look to upgrade him personally. You can include Rudiger, but again, I'd be looking to upgrade him. I think you could argue that Real Madrid are 3 players away from maybe having the best starting 11 that's ever been put together. Genuinely. They may be 3 players away. A Danny Carvajal replacement, not upgrade, successor type. An upgrade on Mendy and an upgrade / successor to Rudiger. That team is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they've got a bunch of young players in their academy that they'll hope can fill out some maybe holes in the squad. But remember, last year they won the European Cup and La Liga despite Thibaut Courtois, Eder Militao, and David Alaba missing most of the season with significant knee injuries. And now they get all of them back, and they get Kylian Mbappe and Endrick. That is a ridiculous squad of players. And just a moment of appreciation for David Alaba. I know he was injured at the end of last season, so he didn't play in the Champions League final, but he's got 4 European Cups to his name. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 league titles. Since 2012-13, there's only been one season he hasn't been a league title winner, and that was the 22-23 season. Every other year he's won the league. Now, I know, he played for Bayern Munich and they win the league every year, but still, what a run of success. It's an A window. It's an A plus window for Real Madrid. I'll go to break. When we come back, we'll have a look then at the Portuguese clubs. Benfica and Sporting. We'll have a look at Porto as well, because why not? See you in a sec. Right, welcome back. So let's have a look at the Portuguese teams then, and have a look at the big 3 and see how their summers went. So, Porto, they sold Evan Nielsen, David Carmo, Tony Martinez, and they loaned with an obligation to buy Francisco Conceição. Mehdi Taremi left on a free, and Pepe retired. They brought in Samu Omoradion, Dennis Gould, who's a young Swedish striker, and I saw some Swedish people say they thought it was a little bit early for him to leave Hammarby. They brought in Fabio Vieira on loan. They signed Nehuén Perez from Udinese, who I do very much like. Francisco Moura came in from Famalicão. He's a good left back. And Thiago Jallo, the former Lille, AC Milan, and Juve centre-back, he arrived on loan as well. He's a decent player. He is a decent player. I'll be curious to see how their defence shapes up this year, but I think Nehuén Perez is very, very good. I think he's got a chance. If he gets consistent games at Porto, he's got a chance to establish himself in the Argentine national team. For me, I think he should be starting for them next to Christian Romero. Overall, it's a decent window. They didn't have any money to work with. They had to make a profit off the window, and they made a significant one. The big thing for them is they kept hold of Alan Varela. They kept hold of Nico Gonzalez. So they're 2 mainstays in that midfield that they can build around. They also kept hold, of course, of Diogo Costa, the goalkeeper, who's another big chip that they can cash in at some point. I'm not a huge fan, but he does have quite a bit of value. Curious to see how they do this year. New chairman, president in Villas-Boas, obviously new manager as well in Vitor Bruno. I think it's a solid B window. No upgrades, but I think they should be fine. I do like the signing of Amora Dion. I think they got a good value on him. And they obviously sell Evan Nielsen at a huge profit. So, yeah, I think a solid B. Benfica. Going out, Paulo Bernardo went to Celtic. João Neves was sold at way under his buyout clause. David Neres was sold. I think they got good value on him. They sold Morata. And then Marcus Leonardo was sold to Al Hilal, and I hate that move. Benfica only signed him in January for 18 million euro. They put a release clause of 150 million euro, which obviously was never going to happen. But then they sold him for 40 million euro. Now, they can turn around and say, oh, we made a great profit on him for only 6 months. But I just don't like it at all. And I don't like it for him. You're 21. Why are you going to Saudi Arabia? Like, you can make good money in the Premier League. You could make good money in La Liga. What are you going to Saudi Arabia for? Like, do you need to fill your boots with money at the age of 21? I hate that move for all involved. They also lost Rafa Silva, which I think is a pretty big deal because he'd been so important to them. They loaned Jean Mario to Besiktas. Martin Neto was loaned out. Kasper Tengsted was loaned out. That's pretty much it. Coming in, Alvaro Carreras, that deal was done a year ago. Benjamin Rollheiser coming in from River Plate. That's an interesting one. He's a talented forward. Now, Romney plays wide, but can play through the middle. I'm curious to see how he gets on. They signed Pavlidis from AZ Alkmaar. He'd been linked with a couple of Premier League clubs, and I do wonder if Forest had acted quicker, could they have gone and got him? He did a great run at AZ. I think the last two or 3 years, he was like over 20 goals in all competitions. Last season, he got over 30. It'd be curious to see now how he steps up from the Eredivisie into the Portuguese league. They signed Jan Nicholas Besta from Heidenheim. That's a good signing. He was good for them last year. Artakoglu comes in. Karim Artakoglu comes in from Galatasaray. He plays on the left wing. I thought when I saw Galatasaray last year, which wasn't a huge amount, I thought he was the best player that Galatasaray had. So Benfica have paid decent money to bring him in. I think they've bought well. I just think they've sold badly. Now, they've sold well in terms of money, other than the João Neves deal. But selling Neves well under his buyout, selling Marcus Leonardo well under his buyout, and there were reports in the last 2 days of the window that they were open to selling Antonio Silva for well under his buyout. You would have to ask the question, what sort of a mess are they in financially? Because those seem like desperation moves. They did also bring in Zeki Amdouni, who I really like, Renato Sanchez, who I still love, and Issa Kabore, who I like, all on loans. So in terms of incomings, I actually think they've had an A window, but I'm going to hit them for the sales, so I'm going to give them a B. Sporting then. Going out, Fatua, who they just decided he wasn't part of their plans. I'm not really sure what went on, but they moved him on. They signed Vladan Kovacevic from a team in Poland, I want to say. 26-year-old Bosnian goalkeeper who bizarrely hasn't played for Bosnia as yet. I think there was talk that he wanted to play for Serbia, so I'm not really sure what's going on with him. They also brought in a Belgian centre-back, Zeno de Bast. Zeno de Bast arrived. And I really like him. Now, it'll take some time for him to settle in. And it takes everybody time to earn the full trust of Ruben Amorim. But I really like that signing. And I think that's going to prove to be good value for money and probably one that they sell for a significant profit in time. They also signed Conrad Harder, the superbly talented young Danish striker from Nordsjælland. Maxi Araujo, really talented winger from Toluca. He's Uruguayan. I think that's a really good window. They sold Matthias Fernandes. I forgot that one. They sold Matthias Fernandes to Southampton, and Toluca took Paulinho off them. So that ended up being like player plus cash, which is a good deal. I don't like the sale of Matthias Fernandes because I think he's an outrageously talented player, and I thought he was going to be a future starter for them in midfield. I actually thought he could start this year next to Hillman, to Morten Hillman. But they've decided not to. Their preference is that Morita starts, I suppose. Look, the key for them is they kept their best players. Ousmane Diomande, still there. That's huge for them. Morten Hillman, still there. Huge for them. Victor Gyökeres, still there. Huge for them. Like, absolutely huge to still have these players. Goncalo Inacio was the other one, sorry. He's still there too. They kept Marcus Edwards. They kept Pote. They kept everybody that was of real importance to them. I think they're going to win the league this year at a canter, to be completely honest. I don't think anybody in Portugal can touch them. They kept Trinkia. I think he's going to have a big season. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Franco Israel does this year. I think he's got a chance to establish himself as maybe the best goalkeeper in the league. Now, Kovacic coming in does complicate that. Maybe he's the one that gets the long-term starting spot, but I think this is a great squad. I think we'll see more of Ivan Fresneda this year as well. Barely played last year. Young, very talented Spanish defender. It's such a strong squad. Such a strong squad. Lots of versatility. We'll probably see more of Eduardo Quaresma this year in the centre-back rotation as well. Jerry St. Just has another year under his belt there. He was pretty good for them last year. I think this is a really good squad. I think they're future-proofing it as well with the likes of Conrad Harder. So it's an A-plus window for Sporting. They kept everybody of importance, and they signed, I think, 2 really good players. The biggest thing for me is the keeping. They signed 4 good players. 2 of them, though, I think are going to be really good. But keeping who they had is the key. Keeping the spine of that team. Diomande, Inacio, Hillman, and Gyökeres. That is massive. I'll give them an A. I won't give them an A+. A+s are reserved for Kylian Mbappe. It's an A. And that's me for today. I'll be back later on with Two-Footed Extra. We'll see you tomorrow with the normal Two-Footed. Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.